Hello, scholars. This is going to be the video that's explaining interpersonal process comments and use of self in relation to another, in communication with another. Now, these are two very important skills in communicating. Last week, you got the chance to try out summarization, reflective, reflection of content, reflection of feeling, and active listening. That was the other one. This week, we're going to build on those skills, so please also still include those in your video. You see that you are graded on that as well for this week's video assignment. You're also to still use somebody, a partner, to videotape, and then once you're finished with the video, you put it in the digital Dropbox for week 6. So let me kind of explain the skills for this week, and then I'll show you just a bit of a demonstration of how this works. So as you recall from last week's video, we have Susan here, and I asked her what would she like to talk about today, and she talked about retirement, and then she kind of went into some of her concerns about someone who's very, very important to her who is retiring soon. And I did some summarization there at the end about everything that came up there. We're going to talk now more about use of self. Use of self is a skill that I would say use cautiously, because anytime somebody is interacting with you, you bet they've probably heard from other people, oh, I know how you feel, or I've been there, and this worked for me. That's an example of improper use of self. And I bet some of you have even experienced that when others have communicated with you. You maybe get so frustrated and so mad at them because you want to say, I'm not you, or I'm experiencing this differently and you don't understand. So use of self, when applied skillfully, helps to establish a relationship with the person that you're speaking with, such that they don't shut down, that they don't become defensive. So, for example, if there was something within what Susan was talking about that I had gone through before, if I would have interrupted her and said, oh, I know how that is, that probably would have left a bad taste in your mouth, right? That you wouldn't have talked any further. In fact, you probably would have left if you weren't so gracious to help me out with this video. But instead, waiting for an appropriate time to use myself. This is really important in counseling relationships specifically, and then when you are communicating with some more communal cultures, collectivistic cultures, those that believe the we is more important than the I or the me. When you are able to find a common ground, they're more apt to listen to what you have to say. But it takes listening for that common ground first before even saying anything about yourself. Because you've got to get in on that communal culture first before saying anything personally. Also, there may be a lot of personal questions that are asked of you. Those who are from a collectivistic culture do like to know a little bit more from you before they are going to say any more information about themselves. At that point, when they're inviting questions of you, that means we want to include you in our group. Please explain who you are, what you are about, and if we like what we see, you are a part of us then. That's kind of a pretty basic and boiled down explanation. The social psychology textbook that I assigned for this course has a little bit more information about what that actually looks like practically, but I did want to bring culture into the conversation again, the differences between individualistic and collectivistic cultures, as you all are now pretty much learning a lot about from that social psychology textbook. So, use of self. We'll see it skillfully played out. I may pause the conversation between Susan and I a little bit to point out when I am doing it, but it is one that I do rarely use. And I would advise you to do the same, because again, people get defensive and they shut down if you say something right away. Oh, I've been there, or I had a friend who, or I understand. So we'll see this play out there. The other skill that we're going to talk about is interpersonal process comments. And this comes back to the idea that I want to communicate that I am in the here and now with Susan and our relationship together. I am not thinking about lunch. I am not thinking about a text message. I am not thinking about who said what on Facebook. While I am here with Susan and she is present with me, I am watching her and I want to understand her better. Last week I talked about linking this to the humanistic philosophy when I was talking about active listening, and she is the expert on herself. The same idea with interpersonal process comments. She is the expert on herself, and if she moves her finger like she just did, I want to ask her, what might that be about? Is there something else going on there that she may want to expand on? So when I use interpersonal process comments, that's helping me to understand the process of what is happening in this exchange between Susan and me. So we'll watch this happen, and you'll see it's some examples of interpersonal process comments include, you raised your eyebrows just then. What is that about? Can you tell me more? And it may be nothing, but I would rather have Susan tell me if there's something about the way that she raised her eyebrows rather than me assume that she just thinks I'm weird. So there's the difference. I'm not making an assumption about what she may be communicating through her eyebrow raise, through her finger moving, through shifting in the chair. I'm asking her to tell me. And I'm simply doing that by pointing out when something shows up in this time together, what does it mean? So this is also a very, very important skill to learn and really hard to do, because most of us are multitaskers. In fact, I can tell you, even as I'm speaking about this video, there are a million things going through my mind. Okay, so a million is an exaggeration, but there's a lot going through my mind that I need to kind of quiet down, put aside in order to pay attention to what Susan might be trying to tell me. I don't want to miss anything out of this opportunity to speak with her. You would definitely want to practice the same kind of idea when you have the opportunity to meet with the CEO of a company and you are trying to establish a good relationship with them in order to promote sustainable practices within their business. So watch how this plays out. We're going to kind of set up the scenario the same way I did with last week's video, and I expect you to do the same thing. Ask somebody to come, record them as they're talking about a hypothetical situation, that then you work on summarizing, actively listening, reflecting feeling, reflecting content, and now these two new skills, use of self and interpersonal process comments. Okay, so we're going to launch on in here. Susan, what would you like to talk about this week?
Aging.
Aging.
Yes.
You laughed just then.
It's a laugh that kind of gets personal, because aging process I don't like, and I don't like what's happening.
Okay. You don't like the aging process.
No. I want to stay fit. I want to stay weight down, things like that, and it's not happening. So there's a feeling with that aging, because people say that that's just normal. That's the aging process. And so it gives you a feeling of, so why am I working so hard for, trying to be young then? Why don't I just give in and do what they say, accept it?
So you feel kind of stuck. You want to stay healthy, at the same time you're wondering when others say things like, just give into it. Why not? Why not give into it?
Right.
And you're shifting in the chair there, could possibly indicate some of the nerves that you might be feeling around aging?
Yeah, it does. It's a way I deal with not wanting to, well, rebel in a sense. I want to be who I am, but do what I can. And the aging process is stopping me from doing that. You know, like your knees changing, there's pains there. Just a whole, you know, looks, I'm a teacher, I'm not young anymore, and I'm losing energy. Just a lot of things that it's so frustrating, because you want to stay at what you're doing, but sometimes you have to realistically look at, hey, I'm old, and getting older.
You laughed at that.
Yeah,
I'm old.
it's just something that it's hard to get used to, because I'm not really that old if you look at other people. And that's why I think it's sarcastic to say I'm old, like I'm using it as an excuse.
So I'm gonna pause for just a minute here and ask, how is it for you to speak with myself, someone who might be a little bit younger in appearance, in health maybe, is someone who's in a similar profession and teaching, about aging? How is that?
It's hard, because, like you say, you're not me, and you're younger than me, so you don't know what's going through the process, the aches and pains and things like that. So it is hard to talk to a younger person about this process.
Frustrating?
It depends on who you're talking to. If I feel comfortable, which sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I just don't want to listen anymore to it, you know, because they don't understand. But there are some who do seem to hear what I'm trying to say.
I'm going to pause for a second and address the class again here. That was a very subtle use of self, but you saw how it may have worked with Susan here. It is my belief, because she's talking about aging, and if I don't address the idea that there is a difference in age between the two of us, then it continues to be this, what I call the white elephant in the room. Basically, that's a cultural phrase that kind of means it's the unspoken that really needs to be spoken about. And so since I'm the one in the room in this communication relationship that may be seen as the person who is of what Susan views as the privileged status, Susan views the young as healthy, vibrant, great looking, whatever it might be. Now I'm putting some words into her mouth, I realize, but that there's something about being young that she has associated somehow with privilege. Longer life ahead of them, whatever it might be. I would want to check in on these things with Susan if I were to maintain this conversation. But what I'm saying here is, since I'm the one that has what Susan has called, without saying it, the privileged status, it's my responsibility to bring it up to her. To say, how is this for you to speak with somebody who may appear to be younger than you about aging? And you saw, she got very honest, which is good. That's the invitation. Please tell me what it is like. And again, had I not said anything, Susan may have continued to talk to me, because she's graciously volunteered her time today. But at the same time, there may have been something there that was lost in terms of developing a deeper relationship with this person whom I'm trying to communicate with. So I hope that kind of makes sense and provides some clarity about when is use of self a great thing. Now, I didn't get all narcissistic and self-centered on her and say, well, look at me, I've got so many years ahead of me, or I can't relate to you because I am so young, or anything like that. I'm inviting her to explain more of who she is and how she sees herself. And I did use a bit of me in there. The part of me that I used was the fact that I am younger than her. So that's an accurate use of self. Another inaccurate use of self, had I said something like, well, my dad's getting old too, so, and he must be going through some of the same things that you are. I wonder if you two should talk. That may have been just a little bit off-putting for Susan. She could have shut down. And suddenly, even that view that she holds about young people not understanding completely what it's like to get old, what happens in the body, what changes there are, and wanting to stay physically fit, but also wanting to surrender to, or maybe give up on maintaining physical health because other people say that that's the right thing to do. Had I said anything related to, well, my dad's getting old too, yeah, that would have probably shut her down, and we didn't then get to a place where she could say, okay, here's more about me. So that's the goal. When you use self, you want them to speak more about them. Because really, in this type of communication, it is not about you. You may have an agenda. You may want to go in and speak with somebody about the importance of sustainability. I can understand that. There's my use of self. But I can also say, wait until the proper time. Establish that relationship first. Wait until you see that they connect and trust you enough, and then bring in this idea about sustainable practices. So that's how what you see me demonstrating here with Susan translates into the field of sustainability. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to say about interpersonal process or use of self. You did notice, especially towards the beginning, I pointed out her laughter right away. And it was in kind of a way that said, please tell me more about that. It was kind of inquiring, what does that laughter mean? Now, a note about asking questions. I don't ask a lot of questions in my interpersonal communication. Questions are a good thing, but use them sparingly as well. Instead, what you see me do is reflect, 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 and then you see her open up more. Try it out. That's not a skill that I'm going to teach too much in this class, so I won't say any more about that, but watch your use of questions and see when they're used appropriately and inappropriately. Also, closed-ended questions, questions that somebody can give a yes or no response to, really shut the conversation off pretty quick. So when you do use questions, try finding a way to open them up so that you gain more information from the person that you're communicating with. All right, checking over my notes here. I think that is it. So your turn. Go ahead and try this and use all of the skills that we have taught you so far. Thanks and have a great day.